Hello, how's it going, everybody? And welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. If you got any questions about politics, just put them in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that politics is particularly strange these days, and so there's a lot to parse through, but we can get through it together, guys. So if you got any questions, you need clarity on anything, just put your questions in the chat and I will get to giving you a great response. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show for debating. This is not a show for people to yell at each other and call each other names or, ill-informed or tell people they're stupid or try to own each other. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So maybe there's a question that you've always wanted to ask, but you were worried that people would think that you were uneducated or uninformed. Maybe there's a question that you want to ask, but you're worried that your friends would think that you're a MAGA person if you ask that question, or maybe your friends would think that you're a libtard person if you ask that question. So you don't have to worry about judgments here. You can ask anything that you like, and there's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there, so I'm sure a lot of people are feeling confused and they don't really know what's going on and they want somebody to clarify certain things that they are hearing. Well, I pay a lot of attention to politics, so I'm a good guy to ask. If you have any questions about politics, you can just put them in the chats and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I don't believe in debates. I don't think that they are productive. I think they're kind of stupid, and so we don't do debates here. It is just engagement. If you we can disagree with each other and maybe we can find a place where we can agree with each other. What's up, Noel Stradamus? Good to see you again. So, if you got any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll do my best to give you an objective and sincere answer. There's a lot of stuff going on these days. I think it's really important that people are educated and informed and engaged on politics. And so, I do my part by doing these live streams to try to answer people's questions, to clear up some of the confusion and potentially point people in the direction of getting more involved and where they can find better information and what groups they can work with if they want to try to make changes. Nostradamus says, be careful. Many TikTok political lives have abruptly ended. I mean, might have ended in the past. I don't know if ownership has been transferred yet to the MAGA friendly American business owners, but I am not here to be famous on TikTok. I am here to speak to people, to speak the truth about shit. And if I get kicked off of this platform, I'm live streaming on two others, so you can find me. You can find me there should anything happen here. But yeah, I'm just here to answer all your questions about politics. So if you got any questions, just let me know in the chat. Put your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. There's a lot of misinformation and propaganda out there, so, hopefully we can help clear things up for you guys. I'm not here to fight anybody. I'm not here to yell at anybody or call people stupid or misinformed. I'm not going to yell at you if you're further to the right than me or further to the left than me. I'm just here to answer your questions in good faith. So if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're any other kind of political person, if you don't know anything about politics, then you are welcome to ask all of your questions here. There is no judgments or roasting or debating. I don't believe in making people feel bad for not knowing things or trying to learn new things. So if that is who you are and just want to get a little more informed about what's going on in politics, then just put your questions in the chat. Nostradamus says, did you see Cory Booker interview where he was asked about APAC? I did not see that. And, Cory Booker I like, but he's definitely, stepped in it a couple of times. So, don't leave me in suspense. Did he do a good job or did he do a bad job? So, yeah, excellent, excellent questions. We'll get excellent, excellent answers, everybody. So put them in the chat if you got them. Put them questions in the chat if you got them, and we will answer all of them as sincerely and objectively as we possibly can. I don't know if you guys saw the news that we're cutting funding for, Nostradamus says a bad job, evaded the critique about APAC. Yeah, that's the thing about Cory Booker is that he's always seemed very focused on his financial backers, and so He will vote for Trump nominees if they have donated to his campaigns in the past. Potentially, he is worried about political retribution from APAC, which is like, it makes sense. APAC has lost a lot of people their primary and general elections, so it makes sense to be scared of them. Cory Booker is somebody who has enough name ID, and I assume is popular enough in his state of New Jersey, because he was saving people's lives and burning buildings and shit like that. So you would hope that he would take a stand against that sort of thing, but the dude needs money to get elected, I guess. So yeah, he's still better than his Republican counterparts, of course. But yeah, that is that's pretty typical of Cory Booker, I think. Even my favorite politicians get word salad sometimes. I think it's important that we give people who are trying to do the work grace. We give so much grace to the Republican Party. I don't really understand why we can't afford a little bit for the party that is better. All right, excellent start to the live stream. Welcome, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm here to answer your questions. Nostradamus says, I don't disagree. He's a good guy, but he could be an agent of change. He 100% could be. He's not at the top of my list anymore. For a while, I was like, he's the guy I'm gonna go back if he ever tries to make a run for it. But he's done enough where I'm like, he's not my favorite anymore. All right. Any questions are valid. Ecuadorian, good to see you again. Says, I plan to take FIFA's affiliates to the UN Human Rights Commission. I'm hoping they will take look this company once and for all. And Jared, why won't Trump leave Ecuador and Venezuela alone? Isn't it against the law for Trump to just send the CIA into countries who are sovereign nations? I'm not really sure what either the International Criminal Court or the UN or even America's laws say about the CIA conducting covert operations in other countries. I think we all just kind of assume that spies are doing spy shit in every country, regardless. But why won't Trump leave Ecuador and Venezuela alone? Because he's a fascist authoritarian, and part of the goal of fascist authoritarians is to expand your empire. Like, he wants to be like what Russia is and start annexing other territory. He wants to be like what Israel is and start annexing other territory. Him having an enemy in Venezuela is potentially going to unify his base around a common, what do you call it? A common enemy. I think Stephen Miller is probably. Sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. I think Stephen Miller is probably really excited about whatever extra powers he could get by going to war. Let's see here. Boogie Oogie Woogie says, appreciate you. Have you ever considered running for office? I have. I don't really think it fits into my life, unfortunately. Joni Calder says, what can the farmers do about Trump giving bailouts to Argentina? Same thing that everybody does, Joni. We got political pressure, we got striking, we got boycotting, calling attention to this issue. Like, the farmers are a very strong part of the Republican base, and I think that they should be vocal about switching their support to the Democratic Party, who would not do this kind of shit, and who has we have a good track record, the Democrats do, of taking care of farmers. So yeah, I would encourage them to use the political power that they have to either try to convince their elected representative to do something different or vote for somebody else. They have the power to do that. Alrighty. Excellent first questions, everybody. I just put a video out last night, and I have a theory that sometimes when I put out videos, my live numbers go down, weirdly, and so we're seeing that happen. Potentially, the numbers will go back up. We just got started, but yeah, it has been a long time since I have been coasting at 10 people instead of closer to like 80 or 100. Nostradamus says, "Is NAFTA good for America?" I haven't dug into the specifics of the trade agreement. I will say that the world is kind of becoming more global, just as information and transportation technology gets better and better. We are living in that global world now, and we are not in a place where any country can afford to cut themselves off from global trade. And so I think any agreement where we are expanding a sort of like mutually beneficial trade with other countries, it generally benefits America in the long term. It will in the short term it benefits America generally. I believe in the long term it will benefit like working class Americans who might be hurt by getting goods or manufacturing services from other countries. Yeah, I think the general consensus about those kinds of trade deals is that even the people who get hurt by it initially will eventually, what do you call it, benefit from it. But again, that's not really my area of expertise, Nostradamus. That's just a half-remembered interview from a bunch of time ago. Average Joe, good to see you again. Says, why do you suppose the DSC is endorsing Janet Mills, the 77-year-old candidate, over the 41-year-old pro-Palestinian rights candidate for the Maine Senate seat? I feel like there's a unique distinction in their policies that I can't quite place. Yeah, it's a real fucking bummer. It's a real fucking bummer, Joe, because it's just like so fucking stupid. You've got these transcendent candidates like what's his name? What's the main guy? The 41-year-old 41-year-old oyster farmer. I forget what his name is. And you got Mamdani as well. And the top of the ticket Democratic Party officials, they seem to be really dragging their feet on endorsing those people. And potentially, yeah, Graham Plattner, potentially, they are, throwing their weight behind other candidates in order to weigh down these transcendent people. And I think there's probably a couple of different motivations for doing this. If we want to try to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, like, they're doing this for the right reason, they're doing the wrong thing for the right reasons. Like, potentially they are worried about retaliation from AIPAC. Potentially they are worried about aggressively progressive candidates turning off more centrist voters. A Senate seat that has been easily won by Susan Collins in a blue state for a long time potentially means that a more leftish candidate would not do as well. And the Democratic Party needs both kinds of candidates in the primary so that whoever wins that will have a better chance of winning in the general election. The bad faith argument would be that they themselves are centrist candidates and they view the ascendancy of any progressive candidates as being a threat to their iron grip on left-wing power. And, that's pretty stupid. It's short-sighted. It's detrimental to the party in general. So yeah, regardless of why they are doing it, it is a dumb thing that they are doing it. Like what the Democratic Party needs is to follow and support these new, incredible, young, exciting candidates that everybody seems to be really hype about. Like, you don't have to necessarily, fucking sell the farm to support these people, but just don't like put your finger on the scale for an old centrist. Like, that's what people hate about the Democratic Party is them being old centrists. What's up, Lisa? Good to see you. East meets Westy Bestie says yes, they do. I don't remember what you said. Yes, we do too. But let's see here. Ecuadorian baseball pitcher says breaking news: Maduro recently said, "Revolutionary brothers, if you're tired of Noboa's neoliberal policies, come to Venezuela. We're waiting for you with open arms." Oy, oy, oy. I don't know enough about that to monologize about that, unfortunately. Alrighty, everybody. Yeah, we are doing stunningly poor numbers today, and it is weird. It's weird, guys. It is. It's Ecuador. It's Ecuador's president. Yeah, I don't know enough about it to speak on, unfortunately. Sorry, Ecuadorian baseball pitcher. Yeah, it is bananas. We have almost the same number of viewers on TikTok as we do on YouTube and Twitch, and that is bananas. Usually we have like a handful of viewers on TikTok and Twitch and around 100 viewers on TikTok, and today we have just over twice as many viewers on TikTok as we do on YouTube and Twitch. So Pretty bananas, guys. Are we seeing a the influence of the Trump administration on the algorithm? They are forcing the algorithm to shut down progressive content creators. Am I being suppressed? Potentially. I don't know. But I'm not getting shut up. That's for darn sure. I will be at No Kings on Saturday. I'm going to continue my live stream so long as there are people asking questions, and as long as there are people that I can get more activated and engaged, then I'm going to be doing the fucking work, guys. That is for darn sure. Yeah, I put out a video last night. I thought maybe if I put it out at night, then maybe it wouldn't hurt my viewership today. But then when I woke up this morning, I discovered that it had been taken down for community violations because they said that it was harassment and bullying. And I appealed the decision and I won the decision. And then, but at that point, the damage had been done. So, All right. Average Joe PG says the DSC is also choosing to endorse Hillary Stevens over Abdul El Sayed in Michigan. I wonder what the similarities between these two races are. I see what you're doing here, Average Joe PG. Yeah, yeah, it's the same shit. It's doing dumb things for either good or bad reasons. And so I just think that we should all be um actively encouraging our elected representatives to lean on the DSSC and the DNC leadership in general to make sure that they are not putting their finger on the scales for particular candidates. Like the easiest thing you can do is just be like, hey, we're going to wait for the primary, we're going to see how things work out in the primary, and then fingers crossed, whoever wins, bada bing, bada boom. Lisa Salas says, "Do you believe the fellow with the island files will ever be released?" Yeah, I don't believe that the Republican Party has the ability to stop it at this point. They're delaying seating that one representative from Arizona, but I don't think that last forever. I think that the Democratic Party is already working on legal workarounds, legal action, decisive legal action for settling that issue. The main issue with the fellow with the island files is that they've been sitting in the hands of Cash Patel and Dan Bongino over at the FBI for a really long time, and they have had ample opportunities to destroy things, redact things, highlight things, put in things that weren't originally there. So, it's a real fucking concern. The longer that Trump lackeys like Patel and Bongino hold on to those files, the less reliable they become, unfortunately. Okay, Carmine says, "Will you be a frog tomorrow since you're not making a sign?" I will I be a frog tomorrow? I suppose we could. It's been a little cooler out these days, so maybe I could wear some sort of a costume that I already have. I here's the thing is that I love the frog costume. I don't love having to buy a thing in order to do a protest whose foundation is, you know, anti late stage capitalism. So I encourage people to wear costumes that they already own, or if you're really hype about getting them what do you call it? About getting them frog costumes, go for it. Sonia's encouraging me to restart. So if all 18 of you people over on TikTok do not mind, I am going to restart and see if we can get some better numbers on the second go. All right, everybody, catch me ASAP back on this same channel, Twitch and YouTube. We will still be live here. So see you soon, everybody. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Well, oh well. Looks like it's just us, the five of you, and the one of me over here. Let me see if I can get some more viewership on my live stream by jumping back on. All right, we are back on TikTok. Boom, says Average Joe. Boogie Woogie Oogie says, "I will be there on Saturday. It just snowed here again. It just snowed here in Arkansas. Is that what AK is? So it'll be chilly, but I wouldn't miss it for anything. I'm so glad to hear that you are in Arkansas, Boogie Oogie Woogie. I hope that you are there doing good work to try to advance progressive politics. I wish that I lived in a state where I could really get my hands dirty as far as trying to turn the tide politically and change some minds, win some hearts, etc. So yeah, welcome to the live stream, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. I'm here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to get into any debates or roast anybody or call anybody names. I'm just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Oh, Alaska. Yes, I see. Boogie Woogie, Alaska. Yeah, I'm not great at state abbreviations. East Meets Westy Bessie says there's an organization who bought the costumes and are giving them away. Shut your mouth, East Meets Westy Bestie. Can you find me the name of that? Because I would grab one. That's for darn sure. Alrighty. Any questions are okay. There's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no judgments. There's no debating. There's no ridicule. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. Shork says, I just don't get how peaceful protests will challenge a government who doesn't care. I mean, protests are valuable for resistance movements. And in addition to trying to shut down the value of a protest for the people that want to stand up against the Trump administration, it is also a valuable opportunity for Trump to potentially escalate the protests into property destruction, violence against police or ICE or the military, and any violence or property destruction that the right can blame on these protesters is then going to be more justification for them to ramp up their efforts to do ICE shit and National Guard shit. And I believe in my heart that there will be people there to specifically incite violence and property destruction. There will potentially be people who associate with the right wing who will be throwing bricks through windows and trying to get into fights. And setting Waymos on fire in order to paint the entire protest movement as being violent Antifa thugs, the way that Trump and Mike Johnson and JD Vance are referring to it. 91G says, when will we go after the IDF? I mean, they are a foreign army, so I'm not going to go fight the IDF. Okay, Triska, good to see you again. Paul Mitchell says, NG aren't shit. They're better than you'll ever be. What's NG? National Guard? Aren't shit. The National Guard aren't shit? Is that what you're saying, Paul? Okay, Akon says, why don't air traffic controllers get paid while Congress gets paid? I guess, I don't know. I don't know what specific law that is, Akon, that makes that happen, but I would definitely do it the other way around if I was in charge. Justin at Terrytown says, I disagree with you about there's no such thing as a stupid question. Well, Justin, I, potentially there are such things as stupid questions. I don't believe in making people feel stupid for asking questions that potentially others might label as stupid, but I'm not going to label questions as stupid. Okay. Akon says, why don't ATC get paid but Congress gets paid? Again, Akon, I don't know the legal justification for it, but I agree with you that it is wrong. Okay. Average Joe says, I'm working on a policy analysis writing assignment, and I'm curious about what you think about this. Do you think an opt-in policy where police and teachers are paid more if they choose to live in the district of their employment would improve community engagement and or retention? Yeah, I wonder if things like that are already happening. I wonder how much, because there is like sort of a bifurcated system that we have now where the people who are working the jobs can't afford to live in the places where they are the jobs, and so they end up doing a lot of commuting. But I wonder if that could help the incentive. I wonder if that could help put those people in their actual communities, because I believe that would be a valuable, what do you call it? A valuable a valuable motivation. Okay, Sonia Boss. Yeah, we're doing a little bit better. 66 is better than 12. That's for darn sure. Okie dokie. Yeah. All right, everybody, let's get into some more of these questions. Ecuadorian says, I think we should be able to citizen arrest ICE agents. I mean, what they're doing is illegal, but unfortunately, the Department of Justice right now is in the hands of Republicans and Trump loyalists. And so, the ICE is going to lie about you having a gun or a bazooka or something, and they're going to lie that you threw a brick at their car, and then the Trump FBI is going to back them up, and it's a whole fucking thing. The best option is always nonviolent resistance, because then they don't have anything that they can use against us. Okay. But John Abbott says the first lunch counter sit-in was 21 years before Greensboro, and Greensboro lasted 6 months. Every day of every single one of those peaceful protests was necessary stepping stone to effect change. The same is true of peaceful protests now. Excellent, John Abbott. Excellent context for all of our resistance and protests going forward. This stuff takes a long time to be effective. It takes a lot of people to do the work to be effective. And so let's all get out there. Dan Blackboard says 66 is better than 12. Facts. Thank you. I'm sure somebody was going to fight me on that. Gimberlina says, does MJ think that military families and federal workers live paycheck to paycheck is the right message? The thing about Republican messaging is I don't think that they think it matters at all. I think that they believe that the billionaire class has fully captured all of our information environments, and so they can say whatever they want, regardless of how destructive a message as it should be. And they will recognize that any Democrat saying something 10% as bad as what they just said is going to get 1,000 times more, negative press for it. And so they're just like, yeah, they believe that the Trump brand has created a permission structure for Republican politicians to be shitty because he gets away with it. And when other Republican politicians are shitty to us, I'm not saying us as Democrats, I'm saying us as America. And then Donald Trump is like, sweet, yeah, you're doing it, man. You're doing the move. You're fighting. I like to see it. So, yeah, that's their incentive structure, I guess. Okay. Okay. Skylander says peaceful protests aren't as effective. That is not borne out in the data, Skylander. If you check out a political scientist named Erica Chenoweth, she has crunched the numbers, and nonviolent resistance is way more effective than violent resistance movements. Carmine says, didn't they say the same about bus boycotts? Whether they would not be effective, Carmine? Carlo Perez says, you think we'll ever use the Second Amendment how it was interpreted to be used? I mean, I'm waiting for the people who have claimed that they buy a bunch of guns in case the government becomes tyrannical. I am waiting for that. They should be the front line of using the Second Amendment to fight a tyrannical government. But weirdly, they're not. Isn't that interesting? Football is cool. It says Democrat and American doesn't belong in the same sentence. That's not an accurate thing to say. Football is cool. I think that you can be a Republican and be an American. Why do you think that I can't be a Democrat and an American? Football is cool. Are you just here to fight, or would you like to engage in good faith? Hope and Bloom says, when will Mike Johnson swear in the new Democrat? Is she really the last vote to releasing the list? Yes, she's the last vote to releasing the list. No, Mike Johnson does not have any plans to seat her anytime in the future, but the DNC and I believe the Arizona DA are filing suits against Mike Johnson for this unnecessary delay. Okay, but Diego Vargas says, does political pressure even work with politicians who are in deep red safe districts like Mike Johnson? Yes, Diego Vargas, it 100% works. The thing that every politician is worried about is that the non-voters will turn out and start voting against them. And so if you can start a political action group with like 3 or 4 people, and you call up your representative's office every single day, and you give yourself a name like, we are the citizens of Louisiana for better government, and we oppose the things that Mike Johnson is doing, and we will actively work on losing him his primary and losing him election if he does not change track. That absolutely has an effect on politicians. And we have seen this work. We saw it work in the first Trump administration. We are seeing it work in this administration. Not as much as we would like, not as fast as we would like, but it is working. We just have to get more people to do it. Okay. Ecuadorian baseball pitcher. As an Ecuadorian, Americans don't want immigrants like me here. So my question to you is, why should Ecuadorians like me welcome Americans in our country if they don't offer the same reciprocal respect? I mean, not every American feels that way. Most Americans, I would say, believe that immigration is a net positive on the country. They just came out with a poll. I think it's like a record high number, like 79% of Americans believe that immigrants are good for the country. So I would hope that the government of Ecuador would not punish American citizens for the shitty actions of a government that only 22% of this country voted for. So, I also believe in the in the messages of the Christian church of turning the other cheek and being better and being the bigger person. So I think Ecuador has the right to do whatever they want in regards to stopping American tourists if they would like, but I think there's probably a better option. User a bunch of numbers says if you're against all forms of authoritarian control, why advocate for more government intervention? So, government intervention and authoritarian control are not synonymous. User a whole bunch of numbers. The USAID, for example, is government intervention that is not authoritarian. The Consumer Financial Protection Board is government intervention that is not authoritarian control. Minimum wage, healthcare subsidies, worker protections, union protections, all of these are government intervention but are not authoritarian control. Ace says, Mercedes says, sorry, but he won the popular vote. Yes, but that still only represents 22% of the voting populace in America. If we were to count not voting as a politician, not voting has won every single American election since 1975, except 2020. Joe Biden got the most votes in 2020. Second place was did not vote, and third place was Donald Trump. And in the 2024 election, first place was did not vote, second place was Donald Trump, and third place was Kamala Harris. Cold Noses says thoughts on SCOTUS ending Voting Rights Act to eliminate minority districts. I mean, the Republican justices, the conservative far right extreme justices that currently make up a supermajority, have for a long time been not using any kind of legal ethos in their rulings. They have instead just had the rule of we will do whatever is good for Republicans and or Donald Trump. And the slow whittling away of the Voting Rights Act is a part of their unconscious or conscious agenda to cement minority rule of the Republican Party at the highest levels of government until the end of time. The good news about the Supreme Court ending the Voting Rights Act is that it cannot be used for this upcoming midterm elections. So we kind of have like one more shot to wrest control away from the Republican Party and a minority of Americans who are hostile to multiracial democracy, alleviating the burdens of the poor, not living in a new fucking gilded age where 1,000 people rule over this with their hundreds of billions of dollars, with their trillions of dollars cumulative, and the rest of us just fucking till their fields for them and slurp up all the fucking chemical runoff from their factories, giving us all cancer and shit like that. So, where in the world was I? Okay, Carmine says, it's almost been a year since I found you on here. Oh, happy anniversary, Carmine. Roberts F. Timmy says, are you like a good guy or a bad guy? I am a good guy. In fact, I think I'm a very good guy. Manuel Felu says, what is the relationship with U.S. and Mexico now? Is good or bad? It is bad because Donald Trump is an idiot. Fletch Lives Again says, any thoughts on the items left to do on Project 2025? I was hoping there was something we could potentially act upon. I did take a look at that yesterday. Fletch Lives Again, as you well know. But I did not look at that information with that lens of like, what are the things that we can stop? I think that Project 2025 is organized in a way where the first thing that they do make it so that they can do the rest of the list easier. And so I'll take another look at it and see if there are things that we can fight. But in general, if you want to stop Project 2025, it's just the same work. It's the exact same work that we would be doing if it was any other issue. Striking, protesting, boycotting, voting, putting political pressure on your elected representatives, talking to the people that you know, friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, making sure that they are prepared to vote, making sure that they're going to vote for Democrats, make sure that they are not currently believing any misinformation. Working with organizations that are already doing great work just like this. Indivisible, Run for Something, Vote Save America, etc. User a bunch of numbers says, when did Trump do that? When did Trump do what? use a whole bunch of numbers. Manuel says, the other hand, Canada and U.S. relationship, good or bad perception? Exactly the same, actually. Our relationship with Canada is also bad because Trump is an idiot. Cold Noses says, will farmers see their error in supporting Trump after the Argentina bailout? It's only helping China. That is accurate, Cold Noses. So I do think that there is not a correlation between how many votes a political party gets and how good those politicians are to the people who are voting for them. We saw this during COVID, where the Trump administration so thoroughly bungled their response to COVID that I think like an extra 100,000 people died just in America. It was spread rampantly around the globe when it could have just been, what do you call it? When it could have just been, contained in Wuhan. His trade war in his first term skyrocketed inflation, supply chains getting fucked by his own incompetency, spurred inflation, and yet the Democrats did win the 2020 election, but not by enough for that justification. Like all the things that Trump did wrong in his first term, just the way he ended his term in 2020, that should have been like 0 Republicans getting a reelection. That should have been fucking, every electoral vote for Joe Biden. And the thing that I think is key here is that the Republican Party has made it so that their base is keyed into very specific propaganda channels that will convince them that anything bad that is happening to them is happening because of immigrants or Democrats or poor people or trans kids and not the Republican Party that they keep on voting for. I think that it is potential that we break off a couple of voters from that area who see the light because of all the shit that's been going on to them. I think what's more likely is that we will see the independent voters, the squishy Republican voters, and the non-voters come back to the Democratic Party in response to Donald Trump and the Republicans fucking over their own base. That's my prediction. And predictions, remember, they are not worth the paper that they are printed on. That is just my opinion. JFGC says, what's your opinion on abortion? I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for the Democratic Party because the Democrats actually do the policies that decrease the number of abortions. The Republican policies don't decrease abortions. They just make abortion illegal, which does not decrease abortions. It just makes pregnancy more dangerous for women. There are women who are dead today because of abortion bans that were only possible because people voted for Republicans, and abortions have not gone down one tick. Okay. Average Joe PG says, regarding Erica Chenoweth, I think it's important to note that nonviolent resistances are also more effective in establishing a democratic government when they succeed, in addition to being more effective overall. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you for adding that context, Average Joe. Boogie Oogie Woogie says, I think Canada has a bad relationship with our current government, but it seems like the majority of Canadians understand that the majority of Americans are still good people. Yeah, I think most people in the world recognize that the actions of the government do not represent the feelings and the beliefs of the citizens, where if, people from Russia are here in America, I'm not going to blame them for the shit that Putin has done. All right, back into these TikTok comments. Izzy RL says 100% tariffs on China is on today. The stock market is plunging even deeper already. Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't see that. Cold Noses says, will Obergefell be overturned? I'm confident that this Supreme Court is going to send gay rights, gay marriage back to the states. That's what they did with Roe in the Dobbs decision. That is what is going to happen with, I'm pretty confident that is what's going to happen with Obergefell. Let's see here. Kimberlina says, thoughts on Pentagon press lockout thing. I think I'm really glad that so many reporters did the right thing, and shame on whatever news organization stayed. I forget, because there's 2 MAGA news channels. One is called One American News. The other one is called, I forget. And one of them walked out and one of them didn't. And so I was like, yay for the one that walked out and boo for the one that didn't. Yeah, there's OAN and there's another one. OAN stayed, but then there was another one that left. 312MQ says, what do you think of the Pennsylvania governor? Oh, Shapiro, he's great. Everybody in Pennsylvania likes him. I'm sure he's not perfect because no human is. Newsmax. Yeah, Newsmax left. Who fucking predicted that? Newsmax and Marjorie Taylor Greene, part of the new resistance movement. Welcome, comrades. Okay. Okay. Let's get back into these TikTok comments. Flo Pappy says, "Who do you think the Democratic Party trots out there in 2028?" So the Democrats are not going to give us the candidate in 2028. Candidates will decide to run, and then we will vote on them in the primary, and whoever wins the primary is going to be the nominee. I do not care for this narrative that the candidate for the Democrats is the one that the DNC chooses. It is accurate to say the DNC puts their finger on the scale, but at the end of the day, it is the primary voters that decide who the candidate is going to be. Cold Noses says, "What is Trump's biggest current health problems?" That is a question for his doctor. 312MQ says, "Dang, I met the Democratic governor that always wears shorts and stuffs." The Democratic governor. User a bunch of numbers says, "Te," I think you forgot an H there. Democratic Party is junk. That is not a question, so that is a block. Congratulations. Right. Fetterman, says Jesse Lynn. Yeah, I mean, John Fetterman kind of lost his mind a little bit. I think he's kind of betrayed his working class followers. And so I would encourage the citizens of Pennsylvania to primary him with somebody who actually lives up to the ideals that they campaign on. A friend of mine, uh, theorized yesterday when we were having coffee that maybe the stroke changed something in his brain because Fetterman has been living by his ideals for a long time. Like, you don't move to Braddock, Pennsylvania and revitalize that town if you really don't give a shit about people. Like, I don't think that he had like a 20-year conspiracy plan to sneak into the Democratic Party by being a great progressive for 20 years. Sean Dude says, "Are you a Democrat?" Yes, I'm a progressive Democrat. Lemmy Gardenmeister says, "Fetterman was also called a grifter by many people from Braddock." Ooh, that's interesting. Wow. Maybe he's been that shitty for a long time. How interesting. Hope in Bloom says, "Thoughts on Missouri ignoring signatures and the will of the people, example, abortion." I mean, this is the Republican Party playbook. They do not give a shit what their constituents say. They do not care what the rules of the state are, of the nation are. The rule of the governing ethos of the Republican Party, and this is elected officials, this is talking heads like Ben Shapiro, this is the Supreme Court, is we do what we want, stop us. Stop us if you can, libtards. So if the citizens of Missouri all vote on protecting abortion, the Republicans who are in charge of Missouri will say, "Okay, yeah, no, that's a joke." If the citizens of Florida vote to re-enfranchise people who have paid their debt to society, then the governor can just go, "All right, well, that's a no." Sorry everybody. Ballot referendums are as good as the stuff that comes out of my bottom. Let's see here. Flo Pappy says, "Yeah, this guy is just yapping." I mean, I'm answering questions. Flo Pappy, did you have a question that you would like answered? Perhaps you could put it in the chat, my guy. Lisa Salas says, "Article 2, Section 4 says that this entire administration can be removed. Where do we start?" I mean, I believe the only mechanisms by which we can remove the administration are through voting, impeachment, which Congress would have to do, and the 25th Amendment, and then his cabinet would have to do that. But if there are citizen maneuvers for removing presidential administrations, I'd love to learn about it. I feel like I would have heard about it by now if it was a thing. Shelly, to you, says, "I just heard Prince Charles is resigning." Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't hear about that. Average Joe says, "Did you watch the NYC mayoral debate last night?" I haven't. I can't stand debates, as you well know. But I did see a couple of clips of Mamdani fucking mopping the floor with Cuomo, which I was very pleased about. Ken C. Walsh says, "Not with your spin." I don't do spin, Ken C. I answer questions in good faith, as sincerely and as objectively as any human being can manage. Ask a question, or you can continue throwing shade and I will boot you. L says, "How big of a problem is redistricting to win midterm elections for Republicans?" So with the law as it stands right now, there are certain red states that will not be able to jump into the redistricting fight. other red states that are able to, if you compare that to the blue states that also will be able to, if California passes Proposition 50, which by the way, everybody in California should vote for yes on Prop 50, then it's a little bit more even, but I still believe that the Republicans eke out an advantage. Some people have theorized that the gerrymandering in Texas has been done so aggressively that it actually might backfire and lose them some seats. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not counting on that I'm not counting on that happening. If we are looking towards 2028 and the extreme right wing Supreme Court gets rid of the Voting Rights Act, then we are looking at potentially even more aggressive gerrymanders coming out of red states that were previously prohibited from doing that in 2026. So it really is this election that is the most important. Like 2026 is our last chance to stop the Republican Party from entrenching themselves in minority rule for a generation. I mean, at that point, we are talking about the resistance movement having to go underground. We're going to have to be doing code words and secrets and secret meetings and signal chats and shit like that. So we all got to be screaming our head off about the midterms right now, or we will only be able to whisper going forward. Hal, 40 and golfer, says, was there a transfer of power to the military in January 2020? And did they play taps at Arlington? I don't know about. I mean, are you talking about a transfer of power to the military from the presidency? That does not seem like I feel like I would have heard about that in the news if that was a thing. Hal Fordian says Executive Order 13961. I mean, not every executive order that Trump signs is legally binding, so I don't know if that's worth its paper. Jackie says, why are we so involved with the situation in Haiti, even supporting an unelected president? Jackie, I'm not fully up to date on that issue. I will say that the closer that another country is to America, the more that country's populace could potentially influence us, either by sending us their immigrants or harming American boats or some shit like that. Uh, and so, it is important that we exercise diplomacy and soft power, especially in nations that are closest to us. But more than that, I can't speak on, unfortunately. All right, one of my mods is very helpfully pinned. Uncle Hippie Dan's question: how dangerous is the anti-Antifa rhetoric? It is dangerous. I'm not going to lie to you guys. If you go to a protest, there is an increased chance that right-wing people are going to do some shit, or ICE is going to do some shit, or the National Guard or police officers are going to do some shit. The Republican Party has been pushing a narrative that there are people in this country who don't deserve to be here, are anti-American, are violent, bad people, parasites, vermin who need to be exterminated. And that is extremely dangerous rhetoric. That is the kind of divisive incitements to violence that the people at the top of the Republican Party have been doing ever since Donald Trump descended from his golden fucking escalator. So yeah, it's 100% dangerous, and I think we need to be doing as much work as we can right now to remove the people from power who have been facilitating that. We cannot reward Republicans in Congress or a Republican executive with re-election or more political power in response to them increasing political violence and divisiveness in this country. There has to be an electoral cost for the damage that they are doing, not just to the zeitgeist of American politics and there being so much more political violence now, but also for all the other fucking shit that they're doing that is unconstitutional, illegal, barbaric, etc. Okay, Boogie Oogie Woogie says we cannot succumb to the fear mongering. That is 100% accurate, Boogie Oogie Woogie. Thank you for adding that, because that is something that I always want to add when I talk about the increased risk to people on the left, like myself, which is what they want is for you to get scared. What they want is for you to, leave your phone at home and not post joyful pictures from the protest and cover your face so that you look terrifying like Antifa. And I know that there are going to be people out there who choose to do that because it's really important that they protect their own lives and their families and the people that they care about. But I think it's strong. I think it is a stronger message to go out there and not be cowed by their rhetoric and by their threats. And so I will be out there with my phone and I will be posting pictures, not of other people. I'll respect your privacies, of course. But yeah, I am not going to be scared to be out there. And I hope that you guys will not as well. JP12 Real, good to see you again, says, any idea what percentage of voters are religiously looking forward to an apocalypse? They won't care about systems breaking. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say it's something small, like 12%, 10%, something like that. Italiana says, I'm liberal Democrat, but I'm curious, SNAP benefits, etc. Do you think most take advantage of it? I don't know what the percentage is. My guess is that most people don't because there's a lot of red tape in getting welfare benefits. I would say that we lose so much more money through subsidizing massively successful corporations and billionaire tax cheats than we do all of the cumulative welfare fraud that has happened over the past 50 years. It's like it's not even close. So I don't give a shit if a poor person decides to bend the rules a little bit to take advantage of SNAP benefits or welfare or Medicare or Medicaid. I would much rather stop one billionaire from stealing our taxpayer dollars than stop 100 poor people from being able to have a hot dog. Uncle Hippie Dan says, if I could, I'd be out there in my blow-up Barney costume, tearing up the streets with my dance moves. We appreciate you, Uncle Hippie. I'm sure there's great work that you're doing that is not that. Estrada DTJ wants us to be desperate and irrational, use it as an excuse for the Insurrection Act. That is accurate. Do not give them any excuses. Be peaceful. Stop other people who are trying to not be peaceful. East meets Westy Bessie says there's a built-in percentage in every program which is negligible to serve the majority. That is accurate. Cold Noses says, what do you think of the young GOP text leak? So, it's a couple of things. Like we want to be clear about what the issue is. Like the issue is not offensive jokes. The issue is not people being ironically racist or ironically saying I love Hitler. The issue is that adults who work intimately with the Republican Party have extreme beliefs where they feel like it is appropriate to say racial slurs, to be misogynistic, to be racist, to lionize fascist murderers like Adolf Hitler. If it was somebody who had the bona fides to make that joke ironically, then potentially I would be like, yeah, it's in poor taste. I think it probably does more damage than good, but go off king. Like you put your money where your mouth is. I'll allow you an off-color joke in closed company. But if your political party is already aligned with people on the extreme right, with the neo-Nazi party in Germany, with a billionaire who did a fucking Zig Heil on inauguration day, with a rogue organization that is building concentration camps, with other authoritarian governments like in El Salvador, with the KKK, with David Duke, with Nick Fuentes, insert racist piece of shit here, then those are not jokes. Those are what you believe. That is your ethos. And I think that we all need to be clear-eyed about who nice Republican voters, people who have just been tricked by propaganda and misinformation, like they need to know who they're in league with. And I think it's really important that they choose to be in this party with those people and to not get to say like, oh, that's, just boys being boys, or they were just joking around, or that's locker room talks, shit like that. East meets Westy Bestie says he doesn't see it. Please DM. I can't. He doesn't follow me. East meets Bestie Westy. If you are talking about me, then you 100% can DM me. My DMs are open. Operation Inflation. I will check that out. And also, you can also email me through my website, and you can hit me up on my Discord. There are many ways that you can get in touch. East meets Westy Bestie. There are many ways that all of you can get in touch, and I encourage it. I want to be a resource for you guys to be part of the work, to check out all my recommendations for podcasts and books and stuff like that. I want to help be a source of education and activation. Supertrix says Trump got rid of ISIS in 6 months. Oh no, ISIS still exists. Supertrix. I don't know who you heard that. Estrada says, Supertrix says, what did Obama do to win the Nobel Peace Prize? I don't remember what the justification was. I believe that because he was running on a platform of soft power, diplomacy, ending wars, equality, ending the division between red states and blue states. He said many times in his speeches, there is no red America, there is no blue America, there is only the United States of America. I think that him being the first black president probably pushed the needle towards peace in the long run. So yeah, I think he probably deserved it for that reason. Okay, Jack59 says, do like Trump. No, I do not like Trump. Supertrix, though, he got it for talking shit. Wow, that's not a question, Supertrix. Congratulations, you're out of here. Scrolling down the bottom of the TikTok comments. The Big Dean 69 says, so for doing nothing. All right, that's also not a question. Big Dean, so you are also out of here. Congratulations. Robin Lynn says, are they going to stop SNAP benefits or can they do that? That is their plan. I don't know if they'll be able to get away with it, Robin. So right now, the Trump administration is bobbing and weaving. They are using whatever dubious legal authority that they can to eliminate certain government agencies or, at the very least, hobble them by firing a bunch of people that work there or putting somebody in charge of the agency who is hell-bent on destroying it, like putting, Linda McMahon in charge of the Department of Education or putting an oil baron in charge of the FDA, not the FDA, the EPA. So I don't know what the timeline would be on that. And again, I don't know if they're going to be able to get away with it, but that is what they want to do. That is what they're trying to do. And at the very least, they're going to make it harder for people to get their SNAP benefits by, massively decreasing the size of people that work for that agency. Robin says, why? It's so sad because Republicans want people to be desperate. They want people to be struggling because when they are struggling, then they cannot protest or strike or boycott or put political pressure on them. Then they cannot go to college and get a better job. They cannot educate themselves to find out what is real information and what is fake information. They will be forced to just take whatever job they can to survive, regardless of how dangerous or demeaning it is, regardless of if their boss is sexually harassing or assaulting them. They will have to work 80 hours a week just to get by and slowly run out of money, go further into debt, and then their children and their children's children will be born into a life of servitude, and they will get to be the new kings and queens, ruling over all of us. Okay, Estrada says, what's your opinion on Nick Shirley? I don't know who that is. Uncle Hippie says, MAGA had better be contributing like crazy to food banks, for real. Jago Vargas says, people voted for Trump because they thought he was cool and owned the rich. I mean, I think that is probably one demographic, Jago Vargas. All right, back over on Twitch, we got, I'm curious to know, have you ever encountered this internal debate? My natural interest is to feel sorry for MAGA voters because I know they're victims of years of narcissistic abuse. However, I also want to verbally torment them for their collective short man syndrome and any physical defect they may have because they are adults capable of making their own decisions. So, average Joe, I used to be in the camp of fuck all those people. I will fight you. I will yell at you. I will prove that you are a fucking idiot. And, I would actually, I don't think it is that weird of an assumption to suggest that all of my most popular videos on my channel are because I was perpetuating a culture war between Democrats and Republicans. And in fact, my most popular videos are all ones where I essentially call Republican voters stupid. I don't know if that's productive anymore. And so while I understand the desire to have the what's the word I'm looking for? The emotional release, ugh, God damn, I can't remember the nerd. It feels good. It feels good to yell at them. It feels good to call them idiots. It feels good to get that little bit of retribution. I don't think it's productive though. And so my new philosophy is that they are innocent until proven guilty. Until I know for a fact that they are a rich piece of shit who is voting for Republicans so they can get richer regardless of who gets hurt, or if they're a racist or a misogynist who doesn't give a shit that Republicans are hurting them, so long as they hurt women or minorities more, then I am going to assume that you are a good faith voter who's just been lied to, and you have been tricked by your community or your Facebook feed or your church or your parents into thinking that this is the accurate information and this is the lies, when it is the opposite. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-do. Okay. Alrighty. Shork says one of my MAGA colleagues unironically cited Ayn Rand, so I don't know. I mean, liking Ayn Rand is also they are also a victim of propaganda, you know? Let's see here. Feel catharsis. That's the word I was looking for. Catharsis. It can be very cathartic to yell at these people. And I am so glad that I thought of it myself. Scrolling up, nobody said catharsis. No one said catharsis. I'm not going to call Republicans idiot, but I will call you. You didn't think of it. I did. I'm a genius, not you. Ampersand says, what is your opinion on the Republican youth comments? I already did a long rant on this already, Ampersand, but I'll give you the short version. I don't want to bore everybody else. I don't like ironic racism or misogyny when it comes out of people who I know are good at heart. But I also don't think that what they were doing was ironic. I think that they were expressing real beliefs that they have. If you are an adult who is intimately working within the Republican Party, a Republican Party that aligns themselves with the KKK, with racists and misogynists and white nationalists and Christian nationalists, then those aren't jokes anymore. That is your ethos. So, when I was a young man, I made a lot of off-color jokes. I can appreciate, the joke structure of a good off-color joke. I don't think it's very productive. I think it's probably more harmful to the culture. The guy that did BoJack Horseman did a really great speech about this, where he's like, you might want to write these ironically racist characters, but you don't have control of that character once it gets out into the world. But that's not what they did. What they did was accurately express their racism, their misogyny, their admiration for people like Adolf Hitler. Like that's just fucking gross. East Meets Westy Bessie says, yes, they were absolutely positively expressing their actual feelings. Accurate. BB Fang, good to see you again. Do you ever take time for yourself and see a movie? If so, go see Truth and Treason. Ooh, I don't know anything about that movie. And yes, I'm a movie fanatic. My wife and I see thousands of movies. We are huge fans. We see good movies. We see bad movies. We see fun movies. We see silly movies and serious movies. There's a whole bunch of movies out right now that I'm very excited about going to see. And yeah, self-care, guys. That is part of what I preach on this show. I preach do the work, but also take care of yourself, because you can't keep doing this fight if you are too exhausted to lift a protest sign. Short says, what do you think about progressive comedians going to Saudi Arabia recently? It's a tough one. I want to be sympathetic to comedians trying to make a living. I have exactly zero patience for comedians who are already wildly rich and successful going over there. I have zero patience for any comedian goes over there and even ironically says that they have more freedom of speech in Saudi Arabia than they do in America. It can sometimes be hard to predict which of these things is going to be bad. It can sometimes be difficult to know how much those comedians knew about the country that they were going to before they agreed to go over there. It can be difficult to know what kind of other pressures those entertainers were on to get a paycheck or ignore the haters, I think instead of being dogmatic about raking every single one of those comedians over the coals, and if you are a Louis C.K. or a Bill Burr or a Dave Chappelle, I have zero, my patience for you is gone. I am giving you exactly zero credit for that. I think instead of being dogmatic about every other one of those comedians, I think it is way more important that we hype up the comedians who took a stand and decided not to go, and doing more to support them than tearing down other comedians. So, goddamn, there's one guy that I really like a lot. Pretty sure he's an Indian fella, but I can't remember what his name is. And he did a whole thing on TikTok about why he decided not to go and what the offer was and stuff like that. Then he made the very funny joke about like, oh, I'm just gonna stay here and do shows in a different country that does G-side and war crimes. And I'm like, yeah, fair hit on America, fair hit. But yeah, go support that guy instead. Go support Tim Dillon. He got uninvited, so I don't know if you want to support Tim Dillon. He didn't really take a stand, morally so much as he just ran his mouth off and then got uninvited. But yeah, anybody who got the offer and decided not to go, support them. Give them your love, give them your ticket sales, and and if you want to throw some shade at Kevin Hart, fucking go crazy, my guy. Kevin Hart, you didn't need to go do that. You didn't need to go do that, Kevin Hart. K2, Nimesh. Yes, Nimesh Patel. I fucking love that dude. He's hilarious. K2 says, thoughts on the political differences between millennials and Gen Z? I think we're probably seeing the end result of a massive investment in right-wing propaganda aimed at young people, specifically young men. And so where we are seeing some statistics and some polling suggest that Gen Z is more conservative than millennials, it's not organic. It is not that they looked around at the world, got a regular ass education, and decided, I think if the Republicans are the one, I think that's the move. I think that we were seeing the end result of a massively successful radicalization campaign by the Republican Party and the billionaire class. And so the good news is that we can bring those people back into the light. It's just going to take some work. It is way easier to change a young person's mind and, punish them for doing extremely uncool shit like licking the boots of the authoritarian class than it is to take an old person and change their minds. Okay, Lindsay Reed says, is the new Leo movie political? One Battle After Another? Yeah, 100%, and it's great. I highly recommend it. Let's see here. Boogie Oogie Woogie says, Trevor Noah. Did Trevor Noah go? Was he one of the ones that were there? Oy, 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 oy. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So Boogie Oogie Woogie over on YouTube says, I'm disabled and on SSD. I just got a message from my pharmacy that would have been paying for one prescription $1.60 has gone up to $45.45. That's absolutely going to cut every social safety net that they can. Yeah. This is part of the Project 2025 foundational project. It is just they're trying to fuck people over and hurt us financially so that we are desperate and struggling. And I'm really sorry that you have to deal with that, Boogie Oogie. It feels so strange to be saying something so sincere and sympathetic and then going, I'm so sorry, Boogie Oogie Woogie. It's not the worst name for being sympathetic. There are people here who are like, I got fired from my job at the government and now I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, Fart Contessa. That's really, I really feel bad for you. And Fart Contessa is like, and I'm disabled. And I'm like, oh no, Fart Contessa, no, that's terrible. Oh God, if somebody could reach out to Fart Contessa and make sure that she and Ding Dong 69 Poop Smeller is also doing good, Short says, I think there is an effective defense of going to Saudi Arabia, but Bill Burr keeps on lying. Yeah, I want to give these older comedians respect and gratitude for doing the growth that they have in the past, where guys like Jerry Seinfeld, who used to come out hard on cancel culture, are now kind of like, being like, you know what, I was wrong. And cancel culture is not a fucking thing. It is the culture changes. And as a comedian, you need to fucking bob and weave. And Bill Burr coming out there against billionaires and going hard against billionaires. And, I believe that his special at Red Rocks, he started with some kind of hacky jokes about blue-haired lesbians and then eventually, had progressive material. I didn't finish it, if I'm being honest. So I want to give those guys credit, but then you got to remember that these guys are also just old, and they're entitled and they sometimes get drunk on their own supply. High on their own supply, as they say. Wow, I didn't get any LOLs for my little Fart Contessa monologue. I thought that was fucking hysterical. Diego Vargas says, if you had to live in a red state, which one would it be? We're talking about a red state, not a swing state. So maybe like South Carolina is a red state, I think, right? Not Georgia, not North Carolina. Those are swing states. Not Indiana, not Florida, not Texas. Yeah, I don't know. Tennessee's got Memphis. Memphis is cool. You know, Louisiana's got New Orleans. New Orleans is great. Yeah, maybe one of them. Alrighty. Triska says, I was laughing in the kitchen. Thank you. You got to laugh on the chat, otherwise I can't hear it, guys. No, I'm joking. I'm a comedian. I need these laughs to live. Everybody. Okay. Fart Contessa can be a real asshole. Also, she was fired for cause. Selling fake IDs. Very funny. K2 says, why does the left routinely eat their own? So K2, I have a couple of thoughts about this. Number one is that I would caution everybody to take every, infighty circular firing squad, Dems in disarray narrative that they are seeing on the internet with a massive grain of salt. I think that it is highly likely that a lot of the people who are perpetuating this intra-left eat their own war are paid bots or paid influencers like Tim Pool. People that are literally being paid to be a lefty or be a liberal and spend all of your time throwing shade at centrists or the progressives of the Democratic Party. So, yeah, I think the problem is probably at least 50% smaller than it appears to be. I think probably there's also the incentive structure of social media where if you put the most extreme opinion out there about how pure people on the left need to be, otherwise you're basically a Nazi, that probably convinces people to get out there and, be hyperbolic and very purity test forward. Yeah, I think there are a lot of disadvantages in the culture to being a person on the left where, because the culture has for a long time been judging the Democratic Party harsher than the Republican Party, that kind of carries over to the culture of the left, where now if you are a voter on the left, you are also getting judged harsher by either being, a centrist liberal shill or an extreme, left-wing fanatic who has no idea, who's, has no idea about compromise or political realities, shit like that. Best thing I can say though is just like don't be part of that problem. And so I am constantly ringing this bell about if you are somebody on the left, then your enemy is not other people on the left, and it is not even other voters who might be on the right. Your enemy is the billionaire class and the Republican Party that is working in league with them. And if you're a Republican voter, your enemy is not Democratic voters, and your enemy is not immigrants or trans kids or poor people. Your enemy is the same as my enemy. It is the billionaire class and the Republican Party that is working in league with them and has been for a very long time. And I know you voted for them, and I'm not mad. I mean, secretly I am, but I'm not mad. I'm not mad so long as you and I can build a coalition to take power away from the billionaire class and put it back in our hands where it belongs, so that you and me both can get paid more, can have cheaper health care, have potentially universal basic income, potentially free public college. Maybe we could be able to afford to go on vacation sometime. Maybe we can only work 3 days a week. That sounds pretty nice. I would love to not have to call up my representatives every fucking week and tell them, hey, don't be fucking pieces of shit. I would like to just not pay attention to politics for a little while. Maybe we could work on that together. Okay, BF37 says, why do majority of C-suite billionaires vote Democrats? So we don't know who billionaires vote for, BF, because voting is anonymous. We do know who they give their money to try to help them win elections. And by a pretty large margin, billionaires give way more money to Republicans to help them win elections than billionaires help Democrats to win their elections. BF37. I am happy to dig more into this. This is my area of expertise. Is I have all of the data to prove that the Republican Party is in league with the billionaire class and vice versa. And so, so long as you are here in good faith and not being a jerk, I will happily get into this with you. I'm not trying to win the argument. I am just trying to give you the relevant information because potentially you've been misinformed. Potentially you are just here to spread misinformation and propaganda. Because also I have not even seen you say, oh, BF37 says, I'm in the car, but maybe later on. All right, yeah, DMs are open. Email me through my websites. I'll give you the short version right now. Short version is since Reagan and potentially before, the ethos of the Republican Party has been to cut taxes for the rich. So if you were a billionaire who just wanted to get richer, who would you spend your money trying to get elected? It would be the party that cuts your taxes. And we have seen this time and time again. The billionaires give Republicans money to win elections. The Republicans get elected, and then they use their power to cut taxes for the rich. Now the rich have even more money, so they can spend even more money on elections. Thank you, Citizens United. And then they can elect more Republicans who then use their power to cut taxes for the rich again. Now they have even more money to put into bot farms and influencing social media and, blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump has more billionaires in his cabinet than any president in history. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I know that you named Bezos and, a handful of other billionaires, but there are around 1,000 billionaires here in America. So unless you can name me 501 billionaires that are 100% giving more money to Democrats than Republicans, I'm pretty sure that 75% of the billionaire class are in the pocket of the Republican Party and vice versa. If they're in each other's pocket, it's very cute. Right. Fletch Lives Again says it's just very, very frustrating that it is so difficult to change some Republicans' minds. Fletch Lives, I would encourage you to recognize that, to have the humility to recognize that all of our minds are difficult to be changed. All of us hold on to our priors with a fucking iron grip. And it takes an effort to go out and try to find information that challenges your priors and re-examine your beliefs as often as you can. And so I don't think it's unfair to suggest that there are people who are very good out there, very smart, and they just happen to get trapped in the wrong information bubble. Okay, Young Booty Tickler says, you a socialist? I'm not a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. I'm also not a communist. I believe in a mixed model like they have in Norway and Sweden and Canada and the UK. Let's see here. Dan Blackbird says he named two and one of them voted for Trump. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Young Booty Liquor catching strays. Oh God, wouldn't it be great if Young Booty Tickler said something about how hard his life has been since the Republicans won, and I get to be like, oh my God, Young Booty Tickler, I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry to hear that. If anybody could reach out to Young Booty Tickler. That's a callback, Young Booty. I don't know if you have been here. If you've been here for the entire stream. All right, Chatterbait Sucks says, do you believe mentally ill men pretending to be women should invade their private spaces? You spelled there wrong, Chatterbait Sucks. And I remember you from a previous live stream where you had some questions that were not great as well. So I think it is. So first of all, I would just encourage you to be better. Don't call people who are trans or who identify as the opposite sex mentally ill. It's just a really shitty thing to do. If there were more trans people than cis people, would you like it if they called being cis being mentally ill? If there were more gay people than straight people, would you like being called straight being mentally ill? It's kind of shitty. You see what I'm saying, my guy? Okay. Chatterbait says, spell checking doesn't help your self-esteem, bro. I mean, it kind of points out that your deficiencies is all I'm saying. Maybe if you're not great at spelling, maybe you're also not great at parsing through complicated political issues. Maybe if you're not great at spelling, you are also not great at recognizing when a culture war is convincing you to vote against your best interests. That's all I'm saying, Chatterbait. So yeah, be better. I'm not trying to fight you, but I'm also a professional comedian. I have the microphone. You can't win this. I shouldn't have said that. That was just kind of like that was inciting. I shouldn't have said that. Sorry, Chatterbait. Okay, Boogie Oogie Woogie says the rich have more money to eventually be able to enslave the poor and desperate populations. That is accurate. JP12 says, on changing minds, I think about Grandpa told me Grandpa was wrong and ignorant, but what a gut punch to have to admit it. Yeah, 100%, man. We were all stuck in our priors. Chatterbait Select says, typical Dem, think they know it all, want to be HR department guy. You know, Chatterbait, I'm going to ignore that because I was really shining you on there, talking about how I'm fucking owning you with my razor sharp wit and my lightning quick reflexes. So yeah, you can get away with that. That is totally fine. But again, I'm going to say, I'm going to maintain my offer that if you ask questions and you want to engage in good faith on the substance, I'm not here to perpetuate a red versus blue stupid fucking culture war debate fight. I am here to engage and build coalitions and potentially change people's minds. And if you want to be a part of that, that's great. If you just want to be a jerk, then I'll boot you. You know, Chedarbait says, spell check rappers, bro. LOL. All right. That's your last one, Chedarbait. If you don't ask a question in good faith next, then this will be your last time on my live stream. Muzz King says, maybe Cheddar doesn't understand what he's reading if he reads. Shiny Flytrap says, hey, how do we feel about the mobilization of Venezuelan army, military, and militias? Well, that's terrifying. Is that a new development that just happened today, Shawnee? I did not see about that. There is a bipartisan group of senators led by Tim Kaine trying to vote on revoking Trump's ability to declare war on Venezuela. And so, regardless of if you have a Democrat or Republican senators, you should all fucking call your representatives and tell them that you want them to sign on to that measure to stop Trump from declaring war in Venezuela. We do not need another fucking regime change forever war where American citizens go to fucking die. And all we do is we increase global stability and we create fucking power vacuums for more terrorist organizations to take over countries that are oil rich so that Donald Trump's billionaire buddies can come in there and steal all the fucking oil. So yeah, everybody fucking go do that. We are at an hour 20. I forgot that I had restarted my TikTok. But whoever suggested me doing that, it fucking worked. We had a great live stream today. We had a lot of great what do you call it? We had a lot of great questions and exchanges and good attendance. So yeah, let's see here. Chatterbait, ignoring that question. Thank you again, everybody, for being here, for the likes, the shares, the gifts, the questions, the comments. I'm trying to help, and so anything that you guys do to help me is potentially doing bigger help. And so if there are other ways that you can think of for me to help, I'd love to do that, because I'm just, there's a lot of work to do, guys, and we got to get more people doing the work. If there are any questions that you have that I was not able to answer on this live stream, maybe you were driving like my buddy who thinks that billionaires vote for Democrats, and I would love to engage with him on that in good faith, not throwing shade, then my DMs are open. You can email me through my website. Link is in the bio. And you can also check me out on my Discord. Discord is a great resource for podcast and book recommendations and also recommendations for volunteer opportunities and great activist organizations that you can join that need people just like you right now. And even if you are stuck in your house, even if you're too old to move, even if you're too young to go out and do canvassing, there is still work that can be done from your house with your inner circle. Or if you want to be a fucking warrior and get out there, fucking boots on the ground, knocking on doors, trying to convince people to change their mind, change their vote, or just get out the vote for the people that need you to help them make sure that they're registered to vote and shit like that. We need people doing the work. And if I can be a resource for you guys to be more educated, to be more activated and engaged, to help recruit other people, I want to be that resource for you. So if I can use me and abuse me, use me until I am all used up. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know we're all struggling. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. Link is in my bio. I have a store you can buy things from. Link is also in my bio. And of course, you can send gifts and be a super subscriber or super fans on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube. And I don't really know all of the various ways that that you can send me money on the streaming channels and stuff, but they exist. If you want to use them, you can. And if there are things that you think I should be doing that I'm not doing, let me know. Like, I am eager to spread this message to as many people as I possibly can. I'm not in this for clout. I am in this to help, and that's what I want to do, guys. So, anything else? Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, And then, yeah, just my heartfelt plea that you guys will all do the work. All right, final questions. Let's see here. Chatterbait Sucks says, why so much Trump hate, bro? Explain, please. Thanks. There we go, Chatterbait. There we go. So I don't hate Trump. I hate all the things that he has done. He is a corrupt, racist, authoritarian, wannabe fascist dictator. I'm happy to go over this with you, Chatterbait. Like, go over every specific thing that Donald Trump has done to hurt marginalized people, people in blue states, people in red states, men, women, children. He's just like a really shitty person and a very bad president. We're at the end of the live stream, so I'm not really going to do that, 2-hour long monologue right now. But I'm happy to, if you message me about it, I will send you information that way, or come back to the next live stream and I will give you the full fucking breadth of everything that I can just think of off the top of my head. Where reasons to dislike Trump and his ilk of Republican are concerned, the difficulty is in just, number one, remembering everything, because there's a fucking 100,000 things. But also, there's like Three Stooges syndrome, where there's so many bad things that are all trying to shove their way out of your brain at the same time that they all get fucking stuck in the door, Alrighty, Chatterbait says, did you like the Biden open border policy? So there wasn't an open border policy, Chatterbait. That is misinformation. Let's see here. JP12 says, like a bottle of lube, use me up. Disgusting. Boogie Woogie, thank you for being here. Average Joe says, what is the likelihood that a chatter in a Russian bot when there are 2 grammatical mistakes in the span of 4 words? I mean, yeah, it's possible that Chatterbait is some sort of Russian bot, but they're acting in good faith now, so they get good faith responses. They get good faith responses now. Okay, anything else in the TikTok stream? Terry says, how do you feel about people taking their phones to the protest tomorrow? My personal view on this, and I understand if people want to be extra safe, because it is more dangerous now than it was before. My personal view is that we need to be seen out there. We need to be seen. We need to be counted. We need to be seen being joyful and peaceful, and not covering our face like we are fucking those terrorists that are working in ICE right now. So I am going to be there, and I'm going to be taking pictures, not of anybody else, of myself, and maybe some cute signs, maybe some great looking dogs. I'm taking my phone. I am not going to be intimidated into fear, into excessive worry. I am not going to let them threatening my First Amendment rights make me censor myself or hide the joy that I'm going to be bringing to the protest tomorrow. If you are concerned about your safety and you want to take those extra steps, then go for it. That is up to you. But I'm gonna be out there, and I'm gonna be screaming my fucking head off, and I'm gonna be there. Okay, Rena says, don't wear all black. Don't let them say it's Antifa. Excellent, Rena. Excellent point. East meets Westy Bessie says, and we need to be defiant. Show them we are going to record it all. Yes, Anthony says you are right. Mia says, I'm going to be a frog. I love the frogs, too. The frogs are joyful. You're hiding your face and you're joyful. Fucking get out there. Young Booty Tickler says, Zionism? It depends on what you mean by that word, Zionism. All right. Looks like we are all caught up, everybody. Chatterbait says, Kings don't allow protests. Get a grip, bro. Sorry, Chatterbait, you were warned. You were warned many times, and you were doing good for a while, but now you're gone. Okay, Mamboscute says, what do you think about Germans' move to the conservative side from their government? Sorry for my bad English. That's okay. Mambo, I mean, of all of the countries that we need to be concerned about, moving towards right-wing authoritarianism, Germany is like right at the very top of that. I mean, authoritarianism, right-wing extremism, it's a problem globally, and it is on the rise. And I do not believe that it is organically on the rise. And so we all need to do the work of countering it, not just in America, but everywhere. It's the Rocketeer says, my aunt told me I looked like Tim Pool while we were at my mom's funeral. So I had the 2 worst things happen to me on the same day. That's very funny. All right. JP says, Kings don't allow protests. You mean they call them anti-American ? That is a really good point. JP12X Real. I have no idea if they are still here to hear it, because they're no longer allowed to leave comments on the live stream. CS179 says, what do you mean Kings don't allow protesting? We see protesting in Iran and Saudi Arabia at times. Yeah, that person is not in good faith. Yes, we don't really need to get into them with it. Luke Pedersen says, how about we all realize it isn't left versus right? We need to look at the bigger picture. So, Luke, what you're saying is accurate, but we need to clarify one point, which is that the billionaire class is hurting us all, left and right of the spectrum, but they are. That from Democrats is. Okay, I think that's going to be it. Everybody. All right. Thank you again for being here, everybody, on TikTok, on Twitch, on YouTube. Do the work, everybody. Have fun at the protests. Go do the protest. Wear your frog suits. Be joyful. Have fun. Listen to music. Say hi to a fun-looking stranger who has a cute protest sign. Make some friends. And do your self-care. Self-care is part of the work as well. And I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye.